Hello everybody, 五一快乐. So the last few days I've had an opportunity to stop working, and so I've been thinking about some of the videos I've been putting out, which have mainly been focused recently on how to attain mental well-being. But as I thought about it, I realized that there's one very important aspect of mental well-being and physical well-being that I haven't discussed yet, and that is sleep. And it's actually something I'm personally quite bad at, abiding to the rules of good sleeping. And so I thought it would be a very good idea to do a video on it. In addition, it turns out in the English newspapers at least, there's quite a lot of attention on China about the concept of 报复性熬夜. Basically the concept, particularly with young people or people working 内卷 hours or 九九六, that they have to kind of take back their free time by sacrificing their sleep so they can enjoy a bit of personal time in the evenings. And of course, this is pretty bad for your health. And so what I wanted to do in this video was discuss some of the common myths around sleep and how we can all sleep better. And if we sleep better, we'll be healthier, we'll be happier, and we'll be more productive. So myth number one is that everybody needs 8 hours sleep. Obviously, that's not true. There are genetic variations between people. Some people need less, some people need more. The general recommended guideline, I believe, is between 7 to 9 hours for adults, and of course it's longer for smaller children. Now, this is sometimes used as an excuse by people to say, well, genetically I require less sleep, I'm fine, I can do 4 or 5 or 6. But to be honest, reflecting on myself, I think recently I've decided that I don't want to gamble on being a genetic outlier, because to be honest, most people are in the 7 to 9 bracket. So I think it's much safer, given the long-term damaging consequence of lack of sleep, to assume that you're into the 7 to 9 category, unless there's very good evidence to suggest otherwise. But within the 7 to 9 category, of course, does it just mean you can sleep anytime? 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, any of these numbers is equally good quality? Well, no, because of course, length of sleep is not the only factor. Quality, but also I'll describe it as cadence. It's also important. What do I mean by cadence? Well, sleep has 4 cycles, and the 2 most important parts of those cycles are REM and deep sleep. This is where all the kind of memory formation goes on, it's where the dreaming goes on, it's where human growth hormone is produced and so on. All the benefits of sleep are there. And so you want to ensure that you get those 4 cycles of sleep. Well, the 4 cycles of sleep generally take, on average, 90 minutes. So the best thing to do is sleep for a multiple of those 90 minutes to ensure that you get your cycles. Now, 90 minutes is an average figure, so it may vary for you, and therefore you should do some experimentation exactly where your cycle ends. You will know when you've slept a cycle because you will wake up feeling refreshed. Indeed, if you sleep 7.5 hours on a 90-minute cycle, you'll actually wake up feeling a lot more refreshed than if you slept 8.5 hours and ended up waking up in the middle of a REM or deep sleep period. This is what makes you feel groggy. So it's time and trying to get complete cycles in your sleep are the most important thing. Point number 3, it's possible to train yourself to sleep less. This, I don't think, has any scientific evidence towards it. It seems to be almost genetically hardwired that we need the sleep that we need, and therefore there's no point every day training yourself to try and sleep slightly less. Actually, what tends to happen as you sleep less, and particularly if you sleep below your own thresholds, is that your productivity decreases, your accuracy decreases, and particularly for mental tasks, your efficiency decreases. So you can't train yourself to sleep less. All you're doing is reducing your performance. I would make a particular note here about the myths of the CEO in popular culture, getting up at 5 a.m, smashing out a couple of hours in the gym, and then going to do a 16-hour workday. This isn't productive. Particularly for those of you who are exercising, you will remember that during the REM and deep sleep phases, you're releasing things like human growth hormone and so on. In other words, if you're sacrificing your sleep to work out, you're just destroying your gains. You just might as well not work out at all. Exercising and workouts are only going to give you good gains if you also have a sensible sleep schedule. So don't follow the silly examples. Make sure you're getting a decent night's sleep in these 1.5 hour increments. That brings me on to like a kind of a point I guess I heard from Zhongyi Yisheng. They always said that it's best to try and get to sleep around 11 p.m. at the latest, because it's after that period that your body, or particularly your liver, starts breaking down the toxins and so on. So I think both in Western and Eastern traditional culture, it's best to go to sleep slightly earlier. Fourth, As long as you get the right number of sleeping hours, it doesn't matter when you go to bed or wake up day to day. Also not true. You should try and maintain a fixed sleeping schedule because your body forms a circadian rhythm, and therefore if you keep on switching your wake up time and your go to bed time, then it disrupts your sleep quality. So it's better to have a very fixed sleeping schedule, which leads me on to point number 5, 补睡. 补睡, does it work? Well, to an extent, of course. If you're extremely tired, you might need to catch up on sleep, but as a long-term strategy, it's not that effective because you're just disrupting your circadian rhythm, you're disrupting your sleep cycle. If you sleep very, very long at the weekend, for example, you then find Monday or Sunday evening, it's harder to get to sleep, and therefore you start the entire new week on a disrupted sleep cycle. So it's better to sleep at regular intervals on a structured schedule than it is to sacrifice sleep Monday to Friday and then try and make it up during the weekends. The next and probably one of the most important points, at least in China, is the use of devices before bed. Most of us know that the blue light from the devices can prevent us sleeping properly. However, what many of us, and what I hear many times is, I'm fine, I can use my phone or my computer or TV right up until I go to sleep. It doesn't affect my ability to get to sleep at all. But this somewhat misses the point. The point about blue wavelength light is it impedes the production of melatonin. That doesn't just affect your ability to get to sleep, it actually affects your sleep quality. So it may be the case that you can, for example, shuai douyin for 2 hours before you go to sleep and go to sleep just fine, but it will still disrupt your sleep quality. The best thing to do is put those devices, the blue emitting light, away 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. And if you can't bear or you cannot possibly do that, then most devices have the ability to switch to, or at least to filter out the blue wavelength light. Blue wavelength light for human beings indicates that the dawn has come, the sun's up, and therefore you ought to wake up. And so there's no wonder that these devices cause disruption in your sleep quality. Next point, penultimate point, is about alcohol. Lots of people say that alcohol helps them get to sleep, which is in fact probably correct. But the problem with alcohol is it destroys your REM sleep and your deep sleep. In other words, you may sleep easier, but the quality of your sleep is significantly reduced. So just avoid drinking before going to bed. If you want a good night's sleep, lay off the alcohol in the same way that you'd lay off the caffeine. Finally, the greatest, I guess, mal-being of all, the snooze button, which all of us, including myself, use quite liberally. Is the snooze button a good thing? Well, generally not. Because when your alarm goes off, you've either woken up at the end of a sleep cycle or in any event you've woken up. The minute you go back to sleep or you try and go back to sleep, you've started a new cycle. And inevitably, when the snooze expires in 15, 20 minutes or whatever, you'll be woken up mid-cycle and therefore you'll feel groggy and tired. So snoozing doesn't allow you to get that full cycle in, and therefore it's just best avoided. It's not going to make a meaningful difference to the quality of your sleep and to how tired that you feel. So they're the kind of the points that I think are like super important for all of us to remember. Sleep is very important for your mental and physical well-being. 报复性的熬夜, like 理论上, you think you're taking back control of your life. You think you're getting more time to spend for yourself. You think you're improving your mental well-being. But in reality, you're not. You're actually harming yourself, both in the short term, in terms of your ability to complete tasks, your mental acuity, your happiness, and in the longer term, because of the effects that lack of sleep have over your health. So certainly for me, going forward, I've been very poor at this, but I'm going to try and pay a lot more attention to my sleep and my sleep quality. And I recommend that all of you do the same. Yeah, it's time for Max to go to sleep now. Yeah, 睡觉是吧?